I'm happy that we have such an audience from all over the world. I'm Yuval Dax. First and foremost, I'm a birder, an Israeli birder. I've loved nature and wildlife since I remember myself, and I prepared a small kind of PowerPoint presentation to kind of present a really special project that I've been lucky to be part of in the last years. But before we start telling you about the Swifts, I just wanted to show you a couple of pictures about myself, how everything started. So that's how I recall myself when I was a small child. My mother says I've been a bird enthusiast, an avid birder since I was around 3 years old. And imagine how Jerusalem was like back then. You know, it's about almost 50 years ago. So I've been I've been around in the last tens of years, and I was carrying heavy binoculars back then, and that's how I became familiar with the wildlife of Jerusalem. You can see the stone walls of Jerusalem when the city was surrounded by hills. There was nothing. There was so much nature around, and not so many neighborhoods like today. And jumping forward a couple of tens of years later, I found myself becoming not only a bird watcher, but also a wildlife filmmaker. Many people ask, what is there to film in Israel? There's nothing to film. You know, people think that wildlife starts in Israel, in the airport on the way to Africa. But in fact, we are an amazing country for wildlife. And my connection with the Swifts starts about 15 years ago, when I was lucky to join a special person, Amnon Han. We'll see him later. I was doing research about Swifts, bird ringing, and filming. I started documenting Swifts around 15 years ago. You know, back then, people thought the Swifts are a kind of a pest in the city. There were so many of them, and they were so noisy in the city in summer in Israel. Nobody paid any attention to them. Uh, but then I started to understand what a fascinating bird the Swift is. Um, I want to show you, to jump forward, to show you a little bit of the film I've done with the BBC, and we'll get back to this film in the end of the webinar. I'll just play a little bit of the film just now. Let's have a look. Okay, just going back to our PowerPoint show. Jade, do you see the PowerPoint show presentation?
Yes, we see.
So that was a kind of a tiny bit of the project, the BBC project. You could hear the David Attenborough sound and the special music of Hans Zimmer. But before we look at the product, the movie, I want to give you a small introduction about the Swifts and the Swifts in Jerusalem. I got to know about the Swifts in Jerusalem when I got to know Amnon Han. He's part of the audience today. Amnon Han is an amazing person. He's a bird enthusiast, which decided to build the nest boxes to swifts in order to try and help them find the nesting places in the cities. And we'll hear about this project later on. But why Swifts and why Jerusalem? Jerusalem is maybe the most holy place in the world. It's holy for three religions. Here in this picture, you can see the Jews praying on the left side on the Western Wall, and the Muslims praying on the Temple Mount on the other side. So there's only one wall separating between these two people. You can see thousands, tens of thousands people coming to pray. In fact, this picture was taken in a really special day, a day which was religious to both religions. And of course, because of the lunar diary, these days happen only once in 19 years. And I was lucky to take a picture of this event when both religions are praying on both sides of the Western Wall. And the swifts were nesting in the Western Wall maybe since it was built, 2,000 years ago. It's an amazing place. The stones some of them are kind of a marvel. It's a miracle how they were able to build such an amazing monument. These stones are so heavy that nobody can understand how they were carried to this place. And nobody realizes that the same place, the Western Wall, which is so sacred to all these religions, is also an amazing nesting place for the swifts. And you can come in summer or spring and see tens and hundreds of swifts flying above the people praying there. It's a real spectacle. The secret of the swifts is that they can find a place to live, to nest in these unique cracks that are tiny cracks between the stones of the Western Wall. These stones were kind of cut in a perfect way, but still, after so many years, they have these tiny cracks, and these swifts managed to find a crevice in between the stones, and that's where they build their nests. And you can see tens of nests in this wall, and it's a really amazing sight. Here you can see the swifts flying above the holy city of Jerusalem. And some people believe that these birds carry the prayers of the believers up to the sky, up to God. And people don't realize that Jerusalem is not only a sacred place, but also an amazing urban wildlife place. And it became a place for urban wildlife maybe since it was built, and that makes Jerusalem maybe the oldest urban wildlife place in the world. It's not only a home, the Western Wall, not only a home for the swifts, but only for many other species of birds and animals, like these sparrows that find a place in the wall. And even the Tristram grackle or Tristram starling, it's a species related to starlings, is spreading in the last years and turning the old city and the Western Wall into its home. Just a minute. נועם, לא עכשיו, תצא בבקשה, תצא עכשיו. My son. And one of the species that is nesting in the Western Wall is the common myna, which is a kind of invasive species. which is kind of strange how how a bird that was introduced into Israel only 20 years ago is nesting in such a holy place, which is existing more than 2,000 years. In fact, when I was doing research, I found that the Western Wall and the walls around it are home even for another species of bird, the pallid swift, that nobody knew is nesting in Jerusalem at all. So things are changing and being discovered all the time. The unique thing about the Western Wall is that it's kind of active day and night. Not only in day, the birds are active not only in day. You see the sunrise over the old city of Jerusalem with the old city walls and the Temple Mount and Mount Scopus in the background. But when the city goes to sleep, the birds are still awake. You call Jerusalem the city of lights, and you can understand why they call it such the city of lights. It is beautifully lit, even in the evening and at night. You can see the Western Wall and the city walls. That's a view from the south. And the swifts, in fact, wake up at night and they become active even at night when people are asleep. And it's a really strange phenomena because the swift is a daytime bird. It's diurnal, but the strong lights on the Western Wall, in fact, enable the swifts to become active 24 hours a day. So even when it's dark, you can see these birds flying. And in fact, the religious people praying, when asked them about the swifts, they were sure these birds are bats because they see them active at night. So they thought the things flying above them are bats, but in fact, these were the same swifts that can become active at night because of the strong lights in the Western Wall. And it's this phenomena. You can see the swifts with the strong lights of the Western Wall at night. Nobody is not known from any other place in the world. Swifts becoming active at nighttime. So before working for this BBC team, I had to do a small research to find where the swifts are living. And I started exploring the walls around the old city, and I realized that this wall is an amazing spot for birds. And I started marking all the swift nests. In fact, I realized it's a whole ecosystem in the wall. And when I did a more thorough research, Amnon showed me that a really special person called Ulrich Tigges did the research many years before, and he found even more nests in the old city. So when I came and did my research, in fact, I found less nests that existed in the past. Here you can see Ulrich with the rabbi of the Western Wall in a kind of a ceremony celebrating the arrival of the Swifts. And this is the first BBC team that came to start filming the Swifts. I must say, kind of do a small introduction, that when the BBC kind of approached me, we did lots of other projects in the past. So we knew each other, the researchers, and because I've done other projects for the BBC, like documenting migratory birds in Israel and documenting hyenas and they asked me, we were doing a new series about Asia, and we thought, tell us if there's any interesting topic, interesting story in Israel to do about Asia. And I thought, what kind of animal can compete with the animals of Asia? Asia has tigers, Asia has panda bears, Asia has the elephants, Asian elephants, and the rhinos. I mean, there's nothing in Israel that can compete with such huge animals. So I offered our ibex in the desert, and I offered our oryx. We have oryx and the wolves, and we have the wild ass, really biblical, amazing biblical animals, the birds of prey, the eagles, and the vultures. These are our Bible beasts we have in Israel. And when I started listing all these animals, the researcher looked a little bit bored, but when I mentioned the swifts in the Western Wall, he kind of suddenly got excited, and eventually he told me we're going to go for the swifts. So this is how this project started. And the first team that came, you see they started mounting their equipment and filming in the Western Wall. And one of the filmmakers even put a yarmulke, how do you call it, to become like more to become one of the people there, because they really looked like a little bit strange for the um, believers coming to pray. And definitely they had some kind of they faced some challenges. The team coming to Israel, that was a very a period which with a little bit tense times, and but they still insisted of coming to Jerusalem. And one of the challenges was to try and film the swifts inside the crevices. When this BBC team asked me can we film the birds, the swifts, from inside the walls of the Western Wall? Can we put a small camera inside the stones? I told them, of course you cannot. This is a totally holy place. And they didn't give up. They didn't give up, and they tried to find a solution. And what I did offer them was to connect them with Amnon, which might want to say a couple of words later on in the end. Amnon had an amazing project of nest boxes, and the solution the BBC team found, this is the one of Amnon's swifts in a nest box. And Amnon has like amazing hands, and he's building nest boxes, and the swifts really come and nest inside. The nest boxes are located in Tel Aviv, not too far from Jerusalem. And the solution the BBC team found was to try and create a small Western Wall inside the nest boxes. And how can you make a Western Wall appearance from inside a regular nest box where the swift is nesting? What the solution they found was to create like a wall that looks a cover that looks like a rock from inside the nest box. And they just had to hope that the swift will come the next year. And they even added the cameras, and Amnon managed to make the cameras become controlled even from abroad. The cameras were connected to the web, and everyone could see the swift nesting inside the box even from Bristol in Britain. And of course, it sounds easy, but it took 2 years to make it succeed, thanks to Amnon. And this was one of the challenges. Another dilemma in this project was what happens if you find a swift that falls from the nest. You know, the swift is a really special bird that is very weak when it flies out of the nest in the first day. The special shape of the wings doesn't allow the swift to fly upwards. It has to first dive, gain speed, and then start gaining speed and height. And some of the birds jump too early when they are not strong enough, fall on the ground. And this was one of the birds that I picked from the ground. It fell and was crawling between the believers in the Western Wall. My dilemma was, should I let it die? Because this is how nature works. You know, you shouldn't do anything. You shouldn't be part of nature. This is life. You know, if it's too weak, just let it die. But knowing that we have a we have a special place in Israel that has a really special solution for swifts. Here you can see what a special bird the swift is. It has huge eyes, a huge beak. You know, it can open its beak to catch insects while flying, and all of the shape of this bird is very aerodynamic. That's why it has such a strange head. It enables this bird to gain speed, and in fact, this bird lives and sleeps in the sky. It sleeps in the sky, never goes down, only for nesting. It can even drink in the while flying, and it sleeps while flying, and it can even mate while flying. The solution I found for this swift, which was just a young swift that needed to gain strength, was to bring it to a special hospital in Israel. We have a wildlife hospital, and this wildlife hospital has a special room which is specializing only in feeding swifts. This is one of Amnon's initiatives that he started, and the swifts need a special food, special insects, special care. They're not like any other animal. We have the only wildlife rescue hospital, I think, in the Middle East. And inside this wildlife hospital, we have one of the only swift hospitals in the world. So these volunteers and workers of the Swift Hospital take care of the Swift, and they even give him personal training of flight. They check how strong this bird is every day, and when it's strong enough, they will release it back to nature. And in fact, when it got strong enough, they called me and say, please come, you have to release it back where you found it. And I just released it back in the Western Wall. Just to make things short, just a minute, I'm just having a look at the watch. Back to the BBC team. They came a year later, and this project became the most expensive project of all the series of Asia. They really fell in love with the Swifts, and in spite it being such a tiny bird, a tiny black bird, they invested so much that they brought the best equipment and the best people to try document this amazing bird. Here you can see the best wildlife bird filmmaker in the world, Barry Burton. He's one of the most famous um, cinematographers of the BBC. And if you remember any BBC famous scene of eagles, peregrines, birds in the sky, he's probably the one who was filming it. He's got like a career of 50 years of filmmaking, and he brought the best camera, slow motion camera. The reason is that the Swift is flying so fast that you need the best camera to manage to catch it. And my part was to film the Swifts from the air. So I was kind of chasing the Swifts with the drone and getting special angles. Here you can see the work in progress. Trying to catch a swift flying is not so easy as you think. We tried every possible angle, and my part was to do all the logistics and the filming from the air. And the logistics in the Western Wall are extremely complicated because every part of the Western Wall is kind of handled by a different authority. You have at least 3 or 4 authorities. One of them is the kind of police, and if you want to stand at the roof, you have to contact the police. One of them is uh, another foundation that they have another building. So if you want to film from there, you have to contact there. All of the people involved were extremely nice, and when they heard the BBC team is coming, they immediately were very happy to cooperate, and they opened the doors for us. And that was really special to see how people treat the BBC Wildlife um, production here in Israel. Here you can see the swift, such a majestic bird. It's like a machine, a flying machine, the best flying machine in the world. In fact, one swift species is considered the fastest bird in the world. It's an extremely fast. Uh, it can do maneuvers, amazing maneuvers. It catches the insects in the air, and it's a really special bird. It flies, of course, thousands of kilometers in migration time. It also nests in Britain and Northern Europe. And here you can see part of the team, Sam, uh, trying to catch a swift in flight. We also wanted to try and catch the swifts while drinking. So we found a spot, an amazing spot in Jerusalem. It's the Gazelle Valley, belonging to the uh, managed by the Society for Protection of Nature. And here suddenly the wildlife filmmakers became happy because they felt back in nature and trying to catch the swifts drinking. And we'll have a look at the final film in a minute to see if they succeeded in catching the swift while flying, while drinking. So another funny story is that this team even came to visit my parents at home, and they ate kaved katzutz. Kaved katzutz is like a special Jewish dish called, it's like chicken liver, and
Chop liver, Yuval.
chopped liver. And it's funny because they were always kind of proud to say that in every country where they film wildlife, they eat the most strange food. Like when they were filming wolves in Mongolia, they were eating yak's testicles because that's the only thing that was there to eat. But when they came and were offered our best Jewish recipe of chopped liver, they were kind of thinking twice, because they're not so used to kind of internal parts, in Britain. So that was funny. And I just want to, before we have a look at the film, the final film, I want to say thank you to the team in Israel. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do it without our partners. One of them is Amir Balaban. He's depicted here in the upper right part. Amir is the first person who kind of discovered this amazing phenomena. He discovered the phenomena of the swifts in the Western Wall. I mean, the swifts were there for 2,000 years, but nobody noticed them. That's the special thing about nature. Most of the time, you just don't notice what an amazing nature you have really next to you. And that's the special contribution of us filmmakers to kind of point at it and say it's there. And the other person is Amnon Han, which did most of the work. He kind of helped the team make the part inside the nest box, which in fact was the hardest part, and took 2 years to succeed. So in conclusion, what can I say? If you want to save wildlife, you can't do it by yourself. You can't carry the world on your shoulder, but at least you can try. But it's much easier when you get help of the best team. You can see Amir in the background, and Barry and Sam. The BBC team was much bigger. There was another producer and more filmmakers that came, and eventually they invested the biggest amount of money in this project. Like more than $3 million were invested, I think, just in this making this scene. So I think without further ado, I want to show you the scene itself. It's about 4 minutes, and let's have a look. Maybe I'll manage to tell you a couple of things while doing it. Tell me if you can. Just a minute. Just a minute. Hope you enjoyed this piece. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Yuval.
I'll be glad to answer a couple of questions, and maybe Amnon here will be also able to answer. Just a minute. Amnon, can we hear you? I'm just reading the questions. Can we get the BBC link for this episode? Yeah, I'll be glad to put it. And I think we'll put it when we'll upload the video. We might just put the link. This episode was narrated by David Attenborough, and the music was done by Hans Zimmer. He's a very famous composer, and you can't get better than this. And that's the kind of flagship series of the BBC, so they really invested a lot on it, and I hope this will help to portray our amazing wildlife here in Israel. We have so many stories untold in this country. Jay, are there any more questions?
There's a couple of quick questions, and I have many questions of my own, Yuval, which if we don't get to, I'll be asking you about. But just a couple quick questions here. How many species of swifts are there in Israel? A listener in South Africa says there's 13 species in South Africa.
Four. There are four species in Israel.
4 species of swift. Thank you, Amnon.
Yeah.
And there's a question: do we ban the swifts that we capture? And I mean, I don't think you captured any swifts in the making of this project, but in the banding stations that we have in Jerusalem and other places, do we occasionally catch swifts and band them?
That you have to ask Yuval. I do catch them and ring them mostly and do research from here and there.
Okay.
Most of the things we do also because we have access to lots of nesting sites. We do researches quite fluently, and we do ring them.
Thank you. I want to ask, so they need nooks and crannies to nest in, and in modern buildings they don't have those things. Does that mean that as over the last, few thousand years of human development, swifts have basically followed human settlement around and they live near humans all the time? Or can they find their nooks and crannies out in the wilderness far away from human habitation?
The basic idea is that they did nest in. Look, first of all, this bird is known to be at least for 52 million years around us, at the same way it is. And it's the most highly developed aerial creature. It is living in the air. As Yuval told you before, it lives on the wing. It spends 9.5 to 10 months flying all the time, sleeping, eating, drinking, and even during the mating season, the breeding season, they start mating while flying. They only need the places to go inside and lay their eggs and roost and uh, incubate and raise the kids, the nestlings, what they call, not chicks. Anyway, because they were developed to flight, the wings are very narrow and long, skeleton shape. The body is very narrow. The wings are sometimes twice wingspan than the body length. And what Yuval told you is that when they go out of the nest, they need to fall down to like 2-3 meters to create enough airspeed for them to maneuver and to gain lift. They cannot flap their wings like any other bird and create the lift and go up like a helicopter. That's why also the legs are, how do you call it, paralyzed. They cannot walk on the legs. They just crawl with the fingernails.
Oh,
This is
fascinating.
the life of the bird.
And
And on the other hand, they make 120 kilometers an hour at straight level flight. And of course, they can go much faster while diving.
Fascinating. So the filming, the shots that we saw that looked like they were inside the hotel, you've said, they asked him, you said there was no way they were going to get cameras in there, but it looked like they were living in some sort of space between the actual blocks of the hotel, and then they flew out of the hotel. Was that kind of just faked? And did Amnon, did you create with those boxes like a fake Jerusalem stone, and it looked like they were in the hotel? Or how did that work?
Let me not refer to this question, okay?
Okay.
Take it over.
Because I don't know, Yuval said that they weren't allowed to, film inside because it's a holy place. I don't, I'm not sure. Was that a halachic ruling or, and I know, and I do wonder also, like in the building of the hotel, like how big a space do they need? I mean, because it looks like some of these cracks are incredibly tiny. Are they tiny and then they spread out into a larger space behind them?
Look, as I told you earlier, because they are not able to make a nest like a normal bird, where they pick the parts of a tree and they pull them together and they lay the eggs inside. They need all these crannies to go inside. Of course, they catch feathers in the air and they glue them together to make like a whole smaller, how do you call it? A small plate. of mainly made of feathers, and where they lay the egg in,
Uh-huh.
so that nestlings, when they uh, pop out of the egg, they will not fall out of the nest bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
So
like a
they need a
nest.
very small space to do it. But the
Mhm.
problem starts when they do it in a very limited areas, like because they need higher places so that they to go out and start flying out when they go out of the nest. When it comes to the nestlings, when they take off for the maiden flight, they have only one chance.
Mhm.
It's you have to go out and fly. They're not like other birds, nestlings or chicks that they, at the first time they can fly, they go with the parents to the other branch of the tree, and then the next more day they go to the other tree together, and they come back to sleep in the nest. When the nestling of the swift goes out of the nest, that's it. For the next
Mhm.
2 years, it will always fly if it
Wow.
can make it out of the nest. The
Hmm.
problem starts when they start laying the eggs in a very, very small, limited areas. That's why I started making them a more spacey nesting places, because the major problem is that they cannot practice if they're fit to fly or not. They have
Mhm.
this biological character when they go up enough, and when they are almost ready to fly, they start making this unique practice, which is called push-ups.
Mhm.
They lay themselves on the stretched wings, and they start making like push-ups, and the legs are up. And if they make it more than 10 seconds, it's probably that the next morning or this evening they will fly off.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Got a couple more questions have come up here about
Okay.
all the things they do while flying. When you say they eat and drink while flying, that do you just mean that they can scoop up the water and they get insects to fly into their mouth, or can they actually are they actually carrying food with them in some way?
Can you repeat?
When what do you mean when they eat and drink while flying? Just that their mouths are open and they can scoop water and bird and insects will fly into their mouth, or are they carrying food in any way?
You've seen it up pretty good in the clips. They showed you they how they collect the water
Yes.
from the surface.
Uh-huh.
The water surface. They open the mouth quite wide, and they touch with the lower beak in the water. They splash the water inside, and that's enough. And they come up.
Mm-hmm. And insects, they just keep their mouth open and look for insects as they're
Yeah, that's why they are so highly maneuverable, because they're always in the air. When they hunt, they just go around and like dizzy flyers, and they just catch the insects all day long.
and
Have you
and,
got
and how do they
any
sleep?
idea?
How do they sleep while flying?
This is a part of nature's wonders. They seems to have some kind of uh, a way to separate the brain, the two parts of the brain. One is going to rest, and the other one is staying awake.
Oh,
Look, they have gained the name in England like devil birds. I don't know if you are familiar with the name, but this has happened just after the Second World War. That the first place they started using radar instruments for civil aviation was in London airport. And they noticed that the summer starts, they started noticing all these kind of small dots in the radar screens. They had no idea what it is. They thought it was the Russians making some kind of warfare, electronic warfare, or the Germans are trying to
wow.
scramble the radar, and they called it devils.
Hmm.
Then they decided to launch up a balloon with people to watchers to see what's going on above London with all these small dots flying around, and then they saw it swift. And then it was the first time humanity realized that swifts are flying and slipping in flying,
Hmm.
circling in thermals above dense uh, cities, where the heat is coming up, and that's enough for them to maintain flying without flapping their wings. Which most of the time when they fly, that's what they do. They flap their wings maybe 7 seconds, and then for a minute they can fly without doing anything. They maintain the speed. They stretch the wings from being like very backwards. They stretch them frontwards and make them straight. They maintain the same lift, even though they lose flight from 120 kilometers an hour to like 80. And then they flap it again, gain again, feed the speed, and continue.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And Yuval, did you want to say something?
Huh?
I'm sorry. No, Yuval, did you have anything else to say to answer that? I just want to ask about the nighttime. There people ask questions again about the nighttime activity. That's because of the 24/7 lighting on the hotel, and it doesn't otherwise harm them. It just makes them active at night.
Yes, so first of all, in wildlife, nature, you can't really explain, you can only describe. So it probably is connected to the light. The light enables them to fly, to catch more insects. The lights attract insects at night, so they keep collecting the insects at night from the lights. The lights are, attracting the insects from all around. Insects are attracted to lights. And the swift has a huge kind of sac in its beak, so it kind of just collects more and more flies, and it can collect a huge kind of concentration of insects, and then come back to the nest only once in a couple of hours. It doesn't have to come back every time it catches a tiny fly, but it can come back with like 100 flies concentrated.
it's they call it a bolus, what they catch in the throat. It's like a small olive, and it contains like 1,500 to 1,800 insects. And
Wow.
they come up, each one of the parents is coming up with one like this every hour during the breeding season. Yes, yes, this is the most highly effective pest controller. Each one of the parents that breed and feed the nestlings, they catch every day about 20,000 insects. Can you imagine? Yeah. They're very active. They go out at 4:30 in the morning before sunrise, and they come up with the last supper, like the 10th or about 10 suppers, 10 meals a day. They come up after sunset.
Wow.
And the
That's
male and the
amazing.
female are equally divided in their task and the parent to their tasks.
Uh-huh.
That's why they look the same. You cannot differ the male from the female unless you hear them in conversation. That's the only way. Or you can wait and see who is laying the eggs.
Very interesting. I'm sure you're aware of Yossi Leshem's barn owl as biological.
Yeah, of course, of course.
If you put an old wooden ammunition box in a field, will you attract both swifts and barn owls? Could they be competing for the same box?
I started using ammunition boxes like the 105 tank shells,
Yeah.
the big ones. I think it was shown by Yuval in one of his slides.
Yes, we saw it. Yeah.
And this is
Interesting.
the way I started it, like nearly
Interesting.
20 years ago.
Wow. Yuval and Amnon, this has been great. This has also been one of our most well-attended webinars of recent months. I think we had over 170 people here and 150 still with us. We're over the hour. This seems like something we should have on repeat. We'll be in touch with you in a few months, and I hope we'll be able to send out the link when we send out the link to this webinar.
Okay, great. You can find us. We are the association, the Friends of the Swifts, and you can find us. We have right now we have live transmissions by YouTube Live from different kinds of nesting sites.
Really?
Actual nest. Yes, yes. You can even see from behind me.
Okay.
You see one of my projects in 19 nesting boxes.
Well, we saw a piece of that in the video. I know we have Raptor cams that we occasionally show on our webinars, but I think Swift cams should be there as well. So
Yeah, you can see it behind me. It's live.
yeah, cool, awesome. Amnon, where are you? I thought you were in the Jerusalem Bird Observatory.
No. I'm in Give a Time, where's my home, where I run the association, where I started
Okay.
the project. At my home, at the roof of my home, there are 15 swift nesting boxes. The first colony I built in Israel.
Wow, very
It's
cool.
called the Givatayim Bird Observatory.
Is it? Okay, that's cool. Great to know. We'll pop by sometime.
Yeah,
Anyway,
by now
Very
we've published. I managed to publish 4 academic researches I made about the Swift. Very interesting finding, especially their ability to raise nestlings. Not they lay their eggs for like dolphins do, like whales do, and like we humans do. We are capable of fostering others nestlings.
wow, amazing, very
Yes, it
interesting.
is.
Yuval,
Yes, it is.
thank you for introducing us to Amnon, and thank you both for a very interesting webinar. We want to follow up on this. Quick question: people ask about swallows. People confuse them, and are they related? And are there also swallows in the kotel?
Yeah, of course, they look very similar, but they're totally different. They're not at all relatives. The swallows are considered songbirds. They have a different way of flying. The swifts are more relatives of the, hummingbirds, and they're not considered songbirds. They have a totally different biology.
And in Hebrew, the swifts are sisim.
Sis, yeah.
Exactly. Sis, and
Yeah.
they're
And
mentioned in the
swallows
Bible.
are what?
Snunit.
Cool.
The name Sis was given to the swift by Jeremiah, the prophet, because he liked the sounds they make when they communicate.
Huh.
This is the onomatopoeic name made by the sounds the animal is making.
Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you, David Amichai, home in Jerusalem. We will be back in another couple weeks. Keep abreast of our announcements on email and on our website about upcoming webinars. And we have some tourist days coming up in Israel as well, and that'll be on our webinars. We'll be sending information about it. Thank you everybody for tuning in and viewing from at least 3 different continents. So we're
Thank you very
appreciative.
much.
And Yuval, Amnon, kol hakavod.
Whoever has any question, don't hesitate to contact me.
Right, you can
glad to
contact
answer.
us. We can forward to Amnon if you have any questions we didn't answer here. You know how to get a hold of me or David in our offices here. So we will pass on any questions we have, and we'll see you again sometime soon.
Yeah,
Thank you
hopefully.
very much.
Enjoy.
Have a great day, everyone.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.